Professor Mahjoob Zweiri, it's great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Today's conference is dedicated to Islamophobia, its different manifestations. How do you think this Islamophobia, this particular issue, has become a specific form of racism and discrimination?
First of all, it's great to see that United Nations has acknowledged that there is such a phenomena invading the world, which is basically Islamophobia, and that's important to see that the world is actually focusing on this issue in one day of the year, which is 15th of March. So I really appreciate all of those who did and work hard to achieve that such an initiative. I think when it comes to the Islamophobia now, we have to remind ourselves of three main things. One, Islamophobia is the product of the others and product of their perception of Muslim and Islam. The minute they say a phobia of Islam, the minute they start to say Muslim are bad guys. So basically, it is a step ahead to basically put all Muslims in one basket and consider them bad guys. And that was a sort of demonization to the Muslims across the world, to 1.4 billion of population. So I think the number two, we have also to look at those who were behind that discourse, promoting that discourse through media, through academia, through politics. What is their interest? Why they were promoting such things? Of course, they were political, social, economic interests, but who's paying the price? Is the stability of the world? Is more hatred, more disconnectivity between societies? And number three, we have to look at in a world where people are getting together through social media, where they have different source of knowledge. I think Islamophobia is becoming more important because we are no longer a victim of one platform of media. We are having many platforms. I think that is an opportunity and challenge. Opportunity where people who are defending Islamophobia, they have to work hard to promote themselves, and the challenge so they can face the other platforms who are basically promoting Islamophobia. So I think this is an amazing opportunity to discuss all of this, bring this to the table, and start a new phase to tackle this initiative, to tackle that such a negative perception of Muslim and Islam.
Thank you very much indeed. You're specializing specifically on Iran, and as you know, the Iranian-Azerbaijani relations are at their lowest ebb. I mean, the relations have not been so bad over the past 30 years. And there was an attack against Azerbaijan embassy on the 27th of January. And given that the perception in Azerbaijan is that after 2020, after the Second Karabakh War, Iran is struggling to adjust to the realities of the geopolitics of the South Caucasus. Where do you see this relation in the future, based on your understanding of Iranian government and regime?
Well, Iran's neighboring countries is really a phenomenal issue, because Iran has an issue with neighboring Arab countries. Iran had an issue with neighboring Turkey and also with Azerbaijan. So it's a phenomena. It's a pattern of the foreign policy of Iran in the last 44 years. Now, seeing all of this, it's important to look at what was happening between Azerbaijan and Iran. Of course, history is there. History of, we know that there is a population living here and there. We know there is a cultural interventions. There are a political, engagement. And I think what was happening basically, it has to deal with the political discourse. It has to deal with action. It has to deal with the perception. I think how Iran perceives Azerbaijanis, what is the action comes from Iran, and actually what is the role they are playing when it comes to foreign policy. I think all of this did contribute to this kind of phase of the relations where there is such a real crisis. Of course, there is phases. The Karabakh is one of those phases. But I think also we have to look at the wider context. Iran perceived every country, for example, has ties with Israel as a problematic relations. This applies on all countries that have a relation with Israel. Also, they apply they look at the neighboring countries at a potential base for a threat, and that is also in recent, for example, weeks, I think there was a statement by Azerbaijani officials that Azerbaijan will not allow Israel to use its own bases against Iran. So these are a gesture from Azerbaijan that they have no intention to act against Iran. What was happening in the embassy of Azerbaijan, we saw this happen to the Saudi embassy in 2016. We saw now they are getting together to restore the diplomatic relations. What really I hope as an expert is to see that page is being basically moved, and the two nations, they move together. Geopolitics, does impose sort of challenges, but also have opportunities. And I think this is the moment where, we talk today about, Islamophobia, and the nations need to get together. I think also the countries need to get together and discuss their matters. I think Iran has to acknowledge the concern of others, has to understand why others are upset politically, and has to engage in diplomatic channels with countries, whether Azerbaijan or other countries. What we saw now between Saudi Arabia and Iran the last week is an example. I think this is an example. Both countries can look at potential mediator who can bring the two countries together to solve their problems and diffuse this tension. I think it's important we look at the nations. Politics goes, but nations remain. I think we have to look at the interest of the nation. I think Iran has to understand from its side that this history and this geopolitics has to be taken into consideration in its relations with neighboring countries, including Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much indeed. Iran-Azerbaijan relations are incredibly complicated, and there is one school of thought that independent, secular Azerbaijan is a threat to the regime there. Do you think this is a substantial argument?
I don't think so. Iran cares who's running any country. Iran has strong ties with a secular country in Syria, with a secular country in European. I think this is not the issue. I think it's about the perception of Iran. The perception of Iran, of Azerbaijan on specific matters. And I think the minute that perception is changing, the minute that there is a discussion about the perception, things can be solved, can be moved to a more relaxed discussion. I think Iran acknowledged, I think, in recent years that the revolutionary discourse, the revolutionary narrative should be controlled, because these are sovereign states, sovereign nations, should be respected, should be acknowledged their interests, and should be engaged. Iran should engage with them based on that. I think Azerbaijan looks at its neighboring country with a lot of interest that they have to be engaged with neighboring country, including Turkey. That is because stability, prosperity, security for all nations, and everyone has to contribute to that stability and prosperity.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm most grateful.
Pleasure. My pleasure.